Welcome to another Agents of Transformation interview, this time with my wonderful dear friend, Dionne Ruff-Sloan. And Dionne is a High Priestess Ordained Minister, Women's Circle Facilitator, and founder of Goddess Teahouse. Her mission is to help you learn to trust your inner wisdom, open to the divine feminine, and kick your insecurities to the curb. She loves to engage your creativity and spirituality through movement to help you live a purpose-filled, meaningful life. Dionne is amazing at deep listening, reframing limiting beliefs, and guiding you to clarity. She believes in reconnecting you to your body through dance, and that's the gateway to wholeness and healing. She is committed to doing her own inner work so that she can serve not only herself, but others as well. Welcome, Dionne.
Thank you, Melody. So good to be here with you.
Yeah, so Dionne, tell us how you got here.
So the short story is I kind of always have known that I was a priestess, and as I started to really deepen my investigations and training on that, I discovered through astrology that I have a lot of Taurus in my chart. Like so much. I have so many earth signs in my chart that it kind of became natural to really start to incorporate a lot more movement than I had ever before. And at first I was very resistant, and there was a lot of having to break through previous trainings. The Christian church is not necessarily known for its embracing using the body as a conduit. The body is just kind of a holding space for the spirit, and there's a lot of disconnection and disassociation.
Right.
And so as I started to kind of unravel a lot of that that training, and it wasn't so much that it was overt training, it was really just kind of things that we all end up absorbing from, just from the people that we're around, and especially in young ages, that I started seeing, oh, okay, that's how I took that information in, and here's how I can move it out. And so in our particular lineage, dance is a big
integral,
big tool for transformation.
Right.
And that there was a lot of resistance there, but what I found was that it really was able to tap in. Movement was really a way to tap into getting to some of the nitty gritty. We don't always necessarily know all of the ways that these things that we collect along life are that kind of sticky residue of things. Different experiences that we've had, different lessons that we need to alchemize to learn from. And I felt that what I discovered was that dance was really integral in helping to get to those kind of sticky, and to really cause a more lasting transformation than journaling. And of course I use journaling, I use all of these other tools, and using them in conjunction with getting the body moving was a really, really powerful thing.
Dionne, I really appreciate you describing it that way, the sticky residue. When I facilitate, it doesn't matter what I facilitate, there's movement and breath work. But like in my grief retreats, when I do these, whether in person or online, dance is one of the most powerful things to help you, dance with your grief, find where it lives in your body and move it. Because these emotions, especially the uncomfortable emotions, are meant to move through us. We're meant to emotion, energy in motion, right?
Yeah,
And
absolutely.
Yeah. And so I discovered, I love that sticky residue
Mm-hmm.
idea, that it's just kind of trapped there in the body until we move with it.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And what I discovered as I continue to use dance in my different circles is that people have a huge resistance to that movement, because we've kind of been entrained in this leadership top down, like, look at what I'm doing and then do exactly the same thing that I'm doing. And the only places that people really are exposed to dynamic movement are like in aerobics classes, or specifically dance classes. And so what I was discovering was that even when I changed the languaging from saying, oh, we're using dance, to, oh, we're using movement, people weren't they didn't have the framework or the experience to be able to move in such a dynamic way that would allow for the transformation. And so I discovered, in continuing to try and learn for myself how to give voice to that, I discovered the groove method. And so
Describe that. Describe that.
yeah, so the groove method was actually created by a lady by the name of Misty Tripoli, and I actually found like Facebook advertised it to me one day. And so it looked just the little 3-minute video of them dancing, and the super simple movements that she was giving people to do. I was hooked. It was fun. That was it. And I wanted to I really was like, I am going to get the behind the scenes, how the facilitation is done on this, because I really could see that by giving people just a little something to latch onto, and connecting them more deeply with the music rather than them worrying about what I was doing or what anybody else was looking at. One of the tenets of the groove method is your way is the right way. You cannot get this wrong.
Yeah.
Yeah, nobody cares what you look like. And so just to be able to give people a little bit of a framework, because everybody knows how to walk, right? But then saying, okay, so here are the steps to this. We're just walking around the room. But now, how would you walk if? So it's a less of a walk, and then it becomes more of a strut. If you're expressing this song, how does your body want to express it? Maybe you try exploring the space above your head. What's your face look like? What does this song invoke in your face? Your face doesn't look all the same. Your arms just aren't, down by your side. You've got space above you, you've got space out, you've got space behind you. Explore, get creative, giving them permission to really do these things in a safe space. And so I started out just by thinking, okay, I'm just going to offer these groove classes separate from the workshops, and I'll still continue to do. But the more that I got involved with the facilitation, it became more of a, okay, well, try this. Make a big C shape with your hips. We're moving your creation cauldron. So make a big, act like you're stirring. What does that look like? It doesn't matter. You can't get it wrong. You're stirring big. Are you stirring a big cauldron? Or are you stirring a tiny cauldron? I mean, these kind of things to really get people to be more, to invite more expression, and invite more of their essence expression in. And I love that kind of one of the main points of the groove method is that we're united and unique. So we're united in the steps that we do, but we're unique in our way of doing them. So that way you don't feel like you're doing this alone. Everybody's doing the same moves, but you have permission to do it slightly different than your neighbor. You have permission to not be a copycat. You have permission to be your own, to practice being your own unique expression. And it is my intention as I hold space and say these things to my participants. It is my intention that they take these experiences in this practice, this microcosm of life, and take these experiences and the joy and the release and the relief that they experience in this session, whatever it is that they need. I call in sacred space for all of my sessions, asking that the people that are here receive what it is that they need in order on this dance floor, in order to move forward in their life in whatever area for the best and highest good of themselves and the planet. So that really translates. I've had so many people just burst into tears. I don't know why I'm crying, because that's what you needed, and because that's what I've called in. That's what I'm holding space for you to receive, whatever it is that you need.
There are so many rich things here. So the one point that you made earlier about the split that many of us in Abrahamic religions have, sort of the split between spirit and matter. So the body is here, carnal, sensual, devilish. Let's just ignore it. It's here to get our head around to meetings, probably. And spirit is what we should all be aspiring to. And in our practice, yours and mine, we have similar training. That split disappears. Spirit imbues matter. Spirit fills the body, and we don't ever feel that as much as we feel it while we are dancing.
Yeah, definitely.
And there's a beautiful, I attend a lot of sacred circle dances. So they're, pre-pandemic, there's a really beautiful group energy that is created when we're all moving with these really simple steps to circle dances from around the world.
Yeah.
And there's something very different that happens when we're doing the kind of dancing you are describing. It becomes us tuning into our own bodies and seeing, well, how big do I want that movement to be? There's this element of choice. There's this element of using our will to really get our body, to listen deeply to our body and express what wants to be expressed. And there's a wonderful, in my priestess process, in my shadow mystery, we talk about the rescuer, victim, perpetrator triangle, which our whole culture, it's a part of white supremacy cultures everywhere. And once you really understand the rescuer, the victim, the perpetrator, you understand that once you step into the rescuer or the perpetrator or the victim, you're going to play, it's a sticky escalator, and you're going to play all three roles, and sometimes on the same day, right?
Yeah.
And the only way to get off is to up-level victim to creator, rescuer to coach, and persecutor to challenger. But when you look at the victim, a victim feels like they're at the effect of something bigger than themselves, something they are powerless to change, right? And we've all felt that way. It's part of the human experience. But for me, dance is a way to move out of victim and into creator, because I am literally creating my own movement.
Yeah.
I'm listening and interpreting the music and then moving. Now I'm recalling all the many times you and I did conscious dance facilitator training together. We did natural rhythms facilitating training together, priestess and high priestess facilitating training together, all with the wonderful Lisa Michaels. And she did these trainings in this huge sunlit dance studio with a big mirror on one wall, but there was so much space, wasn't there?
Yeah.
And just the feeling of moving around focused only on my own inner experience, but also the joy of having my sisters and all their beautiful colors moving around near me. That's an experience that's just profound.
Yeah, yeah. I think for me, the thing that I remember most is those great big mirrors, because you lose when you're in a sacred container like that, you kind of lose yourself, right? In a beautiful way. And so then to kind of catch a glimpse of yourself in the mirror, like, oh, I didn't, it reminds me too of, in the movie Hook, there was a moment in which what they were trying, the Lost Boys were deciding that he wasn't really Peter Pan. He was grown up and he was old, and he couldn't possibly have been the real Pan. And one of the little boys stops and is like moving his face around, and then he goes, "Oh, there you are, Peter." And I think of that particular moment a lot, because sometimes catching myself in the mirror, it's like, oh, there you are. You get to know this different facet of yourself without all of the ways that we are kind of just entrained, the ways that we kind of get bogged down by the stuff that that is life. And to be able to have these kind of experiences where you get to practice being different. I really hold on tightly to that idea of practice, because I don't think as we get older, we don't have a lot of spaces in which we can practice being different, practice trying on different things. And so that's really something that I consciously bring into my group dance floors and my workshops, because we're so hyper fixated on getting it right, or we want to please the teacher, right? Because again, that top down leadership model, we want to get the good grades. We want to do the right things so that we will get the predetermined outcome. And so when we come into these kind of workshop spaces, to be able to set the intention for ourselves that, hey, this is a space that allows me to practice tuning into my own creativity, to trying those suggestions from the facilitator, like, hey, what would it look like if I was instead of putting the clap in my hands, I clapped different parts of my body? What would that feel like? What if I got sassy and clapped my own booty? Just little suggestions that are like, oh, I would have never done these kinds of things out in the outside context, but here it is a safe space to do so. And whoo, what is that like to really be joyful in my own body in that way? And then you start to notice, hey, this wasn't necessarily a class about standing up for myself, or making a choice for myself, or feeling empowered to make the right choice, but I'm making some different choices in my life now.
Right.
And maybe it was because I was bold enough to slap my own tush in dance class today. It's just those little things that I invite people to just practice. No one cares here, just practice.
Right.
Just try it.
One of the the biggest blessings to me of being in that space with you and all those other women, and this happened, I think we started doing this in my early 50s or mid 50s. And honestly, it's not that easy in our culture to be a mature woman. We don't, it's starting to change, but we didn't used to see a lot of representation. And we had in those classes, we had a lot of diversity. We had women who were handicapped, who, weren't dancing like the rest of us. They had, one of them, I think, used a walker while she was dancing. And so there was this range of bodies that somehow gave us all permission to appreciate and love not just our sisters' bodies, but our own, which is something we're not, there's indoctrination against that kind of self-acceptance. And
Right.
I see this now beginning to change, but I credit my experience in those rooms dancing for so much of my just acceptance and love and appreciation for my maturing body.
Yeah, 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 yeah. And I bring a lot of that kind of wisdom into my classes as well, because, I try to be conscious of, um, if I was only capable of sitting, how would I want to express this movement? Um, and I'm really conscious of that. Okay, if my feet, because some days my feet are hurting,
Yeah.
and I really encourage everyone to come as they are. You don't have to feel up to come to a class. You don't have to, you're welcome
You don't
as
have
you
to dress
are.
up.
You don't have to dress up, and I love right now I'm doing these classes primarily on Zoom. So you don't even have to come out of the comfort of your own home. You just have to, click the Zoom link and be there. And make space in your room to be able to move as much as you can. And I invite people, okay, go and touch the wall, like your mom told you never to touch the wall. Go and touch the wall. You can touch the wall. You got permission. What would that be like if you touch the wall? Little things. Play on the furniture. Just trying to um one, bring a sense of play and fun, but also just um, giving them an opportunity to see even their own space as a little bit different.
Yeah. Yeah. So Dionne, I'm curious, the trainings we did many, many years ago, how has that affected your daily physical/spiritual practice?
Mm,
When someone asks me, do you have a spiritual practice? I describe the movement, the breath
mhm.
work. I describe how my prayers are expressed through my physical body. How has that changed your own daily practice or weekly practice?
The most important thing that I think with all of this training is that my practice does change because I am different seasonally. Sometimes it's seasonally, sometimes it, it's daily. Most of the time it's seasonally. That there are certain practices that I don't feel called to as the seasons change. Dance is not necessarily one of them. I mean, I dance is something that I pretty much do year round, but sometimes I feel um, like getting out and going for a walk, but I don't go for a walk. I strut. I'm like, I have my music on. And so why would I, if I'm fully expressing myself, why would I just walk with the music on, And so sometimes I'm like, I'm grooving it out. I'm really like strut, and I cannot tell you how many times people don't even hear my music, but they see me like expressing, and then they will be expressive as well. Like I can't. It's amazing to me how when you just it for me, it just really reiterates the no one cares what you look like. In fact, they're waiting for permission.
For permission. Right.
They're
Right.
waiting for permission.
Yeah.
There has been so many times where I have just been like, oh, there's a song that I want, that I love. In the before times, not so much now, but in the grocery store, there's a song that I really like. And I just start dancing down the aisle, pushing my cart, dancing. Somebody will come and dance with me. I mean, it's just amazing that this is something that connects us.
Right.
That movement is something that connects us. And so coming back to the practices that really make the difference, um, I think just giving myself permission to say, I have a list, all of these trainings, of course, we have lists and lists and lists of different practices. Really giving myself permission to say, what is alive for me in this season? What practice is alive for me in this season? Some practices will stay alive and be enlivening year round, and other practices might need to rest. And I think that's natural. I think I've noticed a lot of emphasis on consistency, and there is, don't get me wrong, there is beauty in being able to say, oh yes, I've done blah 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 practice every day for the last however many years. If that's enlivening for you, that
Right.
is fantastic. But if you are just consistent in your practice for some external validation,
And forcing
then
yourself through it.
yeah, and forcing yourself through it for the external validation of being able to say, oh yes, I'm a big guru and I've been able to do such and such for bazillion years. There's no juice in that. And for my spiritual practices, they are there to juice me up, to remind me of the connection of my spirit and my body, because I am here for a reason and a purpose. I believe, I'm my spirit incarnated in this body for a reason and a purpose. And I want to, and this might be my Taurus, because Taurus loves that beauty, that sensuality, that, all of that vibrance, all of that.
Yeah.
But I don't, I want everybody to experience that as well, because if not, then what the hell are we, here for? Why are we here? Why are we doing any of this if it's not so that we can experience the richness and the juiciness of life?
Yeah, that's so beautifully said. And, in my initiation into the priestess path, I was stunned to hear from the background I came from, which is a very sort of, rigid, rigid background, that this was a path of beauty and joy. This is a path of embodiment.
Yeah.
And I was like, wow, this is different.
Yeah. It really is. And, I think that being on this path of joy and embodiment doesn't mean that things will, that will be we won't be challenged, or that we are to turn a blind eye to the suffering and all of these things. I think we were talking earlier, and the word that I really resonate with in this context is we're resourcing ourselves,
Yeah.
so that we can support others.
Right.
And then when they are well resourced, they can help to support us in this kind of infinite loop of sacred reciprocity.
Yes.
Because we need each other, right?
We have got to learn the ancient technology of creating village. Again, because patriarchy and colonialization has taken that out of our consciousness, and this is a way of reinstalling that. As you and I facilitate Nicole Christine's priestess process, these are processes of depatriarchalization and decolonialization, so that we can really come into not just right relationship with ourselves and with our consciousness, but with each other. Yeah. That beautiful loop is how we create community.
Yeah.
And don't we need community in these times?
Oh, yeah, yeah, most definitely. I think that's one of the biggest lessons I think of this pandemic is just how unsustainable things were in the before times, and we didn't have the space to pause and see how unsustainable they were.
Right.
And now, as things are starting to kind of settle, I imagine that everything's kind of the last 2 years, almost 3 years now, has been kind of like a snow globe where everything is just
Right.
up, you know.
Right.
And
Right.
so, as things start to settle around us, how I think we're in this kind of transition space of how do we want to re-engage with
Yeah.
the things, and being really conscious of making the choice, because I think we were kind of thrust into the system because that's just how it was. And now we've had this space of being able to have the time, have a slower pace in order to say, okay, that was not sustainable for me. That within the system, that was not sustainable for me. And
Right.
so now it becomes when we're hearing these outer messages of, oh, we want to get back to normal, we want to get to, what does the new normal look like?
And how
Rather than
can,
going back into that space
right.
of what the outer world says,
Right.
what does a normal look like for me in this season?
Right. And I asked you to come on with me and do this Agents of Transformation interview because I see you, Dionne, as someone who is an agent of transformation in a sustainable way,
Mm,
in a really organic, sustainable way that works for you. Um, I want you to just tell us a little bit about Goddess Teahouse and tell people where they can find you on Instagram, because one of the things that I will look for on Instagram is your daily readings, or every few days I see you, and there's always a sweetness in those messages that you
mm.
offer others. So talk to us about your community and how people can find you.
Yeah, yeah. The actually the daily reading started as a TikTok thing. my, my daughter suggested that I get on TikTok and do one card pulls, and I was like, okay, and I have like 58 seconds to do it. And so they kind of started out as she could come to me at any time and get a reading. I'm right down the hallway from her, and I'm blessed that she's still at home, and even though she's supposed to be, the outer world telling her she's supposed to be out on her own at this point of her life, she's still at home. And so it became kind of messages that if I was pulling a card for her, if I was pulling a card for my son, what would I want to say? What would the distillation of the message be? And I started in 2020, just shortly after lockdown, where I was just posting one cards. And then one of my videos went viral. And so now I have like 51,000 followers on TikTok. And then Instagram started allowing you to post
Right.
videos. And so I started cross posting. I would post a video on TikTok, and then I would post it onto Instagram. And it's kind of taken on a space of being a legacy project for me, of um, when hopefully in the very, very, very distant future, if when I am no longer embodied, that my kids, or the people who have been in my circle, who've been in my community, or been in my sphere, just feel like they want to have that point of connection with me, that they can go, and even though these might have been videos that I did a bazillion years ago, but it speaks to something that they're going through right then. And so that's kind of the energy that I bring. And I think that's I really feel like people really resonate with that. But you don't have to get on TikTok. I heard a lot of people saying, "Oh, I don't know anything about TikTok." You don't have to get on TikTok. If you're on Instagram, you're gonna get the same messages. So I'm DT Priestess. Goddess Teahouse came about because a lot of deep spiritual conversations for me happened over having tea parties. And and I when I first started working with the elements, um in that more kind of focused way, I really tapped into the fact that all of the elements are connected in a cup of tea. If you need to do any kind of work with the elements, and I've had a lot of people, oh, how do I get started working with the elements? Well, have a cup of tea. The earth of the tea is the leaves of the tea. You have to use fire and water, and you have to allow the leaves to unfurl, and every tea is different. It has a spirit, so all of the elements are represented within a cup of tea. And all you have to do is just take the time to tap in. Maybe you need to connect more with earth, and so you spend more time with the leaves. You spend more time, checking in with them and seeing what they're dehydrated, but then they open up in water. So does that mean that you might need to tap in more to your emotions so that you can open up more space and allow things to unfurl, allow things to infuse? And so the more that I, talked about having cups of tea as a spiritual practice, then people started saying, oh, that Dionne, she's that tea priestess. And so that I became Dionne the Tea Priestess, and then Goddess Teahouse actually made sense.
So,
And
so I just want to ask you if you can just give our viewers and listeners an overview of the elemental forces of creation, because you and I received this training and I hear you referring to it, but for people who aren't yet really connected to the elements like that and who don't work with the elements on a daily basis, maybe you could give an overview.
yeah, so the elements are the basic building blocks of all of everything on the planet. Earth is the physical aspect. That includes my body, your body, the planet that we walk on, the computer, the physical thing of the computer that allows us to connect, the desk that the computer sits on. Anything that is tangible and physical is of the earth realm. And then you have the water realm. It's the emotional realm. It's the water that you drink. Obviously, it's the fluid and the liquid within your body, but it's also the emotional realm. It's the way that we come into relationship with each other. You have the air realm, which is the mental realm, and this is an invisible realm. We don't necessarily interact with it other than the breath. You can't see the breath. You can't see the wind unless it's blowing through the leaves and the trees. You can't see the internet. We are connecting on this invisible realm, the internet. No, there's a lot of earth that goes into it, but to connect to the World Wide Web, it's not a real physical thing. It is an air realm thing. And this is also where we set our intentions, and where we connect to each other through different thoughts and ideas and practices. And then we have fire, which is the energy and action realm. And that is the electrical pulses that pump our hearts, the information that our brain sends to all of the body parts to have them move without us having to consciously, tell our arm to move or tell our eyes to blink or all of these things. This is also where we learn how to take action on the things, on that intention that we set, really to move forward. And this is where what we engage with when we're doing dance, when we're moving, right? And then we have the spiritual realm. That is the essence expression of us as individuated beings, but also our connection with God. God is all that is. Great Spirit, divine, whatever your understanding of that which is greater than us. Right. And spirit is where we come into co-creation. Spirit gives us guidance and allows us to take the intention, take what is on our hearts to create, what is in our minds to create, and bring it from this formless space into a fully formed creation in whatever way that looks.
It has
And so,
made,
a cup of tea is one of the ways that I like to start people engaging with it. And then also dance really is a way to connect with
right.
and really start to experience all of the elements at once. Because, when you're moving, you're getting the blood circulating faster, you're getting the heart beating faster, you might experience sweat, you're listening for the changes, the cues of the music, and the music is also traveling in the air realm.
Right.
And so, these because I do so much elemental work, these are my favorite, tools, my go-to tools for people who don't have the extensive training or want to learn how to connect initially.
The one, this process that you've just encapsulated, working with what I consider the feminine axis, which is earth and water, the masculine axis, which is air and fire, and then of course spirit, which holds the center, has made such a profound difference for me, because when I'm stuck, I can go around and figure out which one of these I'm sort of caught up in or stuck in, and what I need to move through.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
dance again, like with you, it's one of my go-tos. There's a wonderful book called Sacred Woman, Sacred Dance
Mm,
that really has informed me on the ancient ways that women used dance to move not just their own lives forward, but their communities forward. Yeah.
And I really want to make an important point here, that when we're talking about this masculine and this feminine axis, this does not have anything to do with sexuality. So it doesn't matter what you identify as. Um, this these energies, these elemental forces are accessible and available to everyone. And right now we use the languaging of masculine and feminine because we just don't have anything better right now. But I'm holding space for us to have more expansive languaging around these
Oh, we
powers
need
as well.
that.
Yeah,
Yes, we
yeah.
need to expand our concept of all of this. So, yeah, because you and I are in a process that has really required us to come out of the one up, one down dominator
Yeah,
experience of masculine, feminine within ourselves, right?
yeah,
Right brain, left brain, like, do we pay more attention to the logical linear side or the creative holistic intuitive side? It's like we have to come out of this relationship and into this relationship.
yeah.
And when we can do that within ourselves, then we can create that in all of our relationships. So they ascend from being transactional into being deeply relational.
Yes, yeah, yeah, yeah.
Then
And I think that's super important going forward, as we are figuring out what the new normal looks like. What kind of relationships do we want to encourage and continue to grow in our own personal lives and within the communities that we are serving, that we are wanting to be a part of. Yeah.
so it's going to sound to many of our viewers and listeners like we've just talked about some light, wonderful things, dance and uh, doing readings and working with the elements. And these are the deepest processes that are a part of me resourcing my resilience for myself and also in my communities.
Mm-hmm.
So thank you so much, Dionne, for being willing to come today and just share your wisdom and share your practices. And can you just give your social media? Where can people find you?
Yeah, on Instagram, well, pretty much everywhere, like TikTok and Instagram, I'm DT Priestess. And then on YouTube, I have my Goddess Teahouse. If you type in Goddess Teahouse, I'm there. And then I also have my website, goddessteahouse.com.
Beautiful. Thank you. And we'll put all of that in the show notes. Thank you so much, Dionne.
Thank you.